Everyone wants it cheap, fast, and excellent. However, you rarely get all three. My question is, which one will you compromise on?
What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Grind.
BTG.
Hey, if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. And please don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of our future content. Our podcast is for the doers and the dreamers who are ready to take their lessons and turn them into actions. My name is Kay.
I'm Alan.
And I'm Tosin. And today, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background into some of the mentorship that I do, because one of the things that I'm really passionate about is the accounting and CPA space, right? I think I've mentioned it before on previous episodes that there is a shortage of accountants and CPAs out there. So, yes, there is.
Because it's boring.
Google it.
It's boring.
Maybe they're all going to IT or something. I don't know where they're all going, all right?
Yeah.
Or I call it, we don't make the field look sexy enough, right? So, but that's, I mean, it's because, let's go down that rabbit hole real quick. Personally, I don't know the answer. I mean, you guys can probably Google it and all that stuff. But personally, I feel like people have stereotyped accountants to be in like, you know, we sit behind 3 screens, which I do have, you know, and we look at spreadsheets all day long, and that's all it is. We got these big glasses, you know, reflecting the blue light and all that stuff. Getting really nerdy on this, you know, and that's all an accountant is, right? But we are so much more.
You're
right?
people. I get it. You have feelings.
Well, this is how I would describe it. We're really like the lifeblood of businesses.
This is true.
If you're not able to record your ins and outs, if you're not able to record that basic in, money out, all right, I'm really simplifying it, okay? How are you going to analyze your numbers? How are you going to know what, you know, all of these fancy terms they come out with, you know, whether it's CAC, whether it's ROI, IRR, you know, yes, I'm doing that on purpose. All right. Yes, I'm not defining it. Oh, it's okay. All right. But how are you going to know all those numbers if you don't have really like the thing that makes the sausage going?
So you know, as you're saying that, I'm just thinking of, with sausage, basically the accountants are more like, I don't know about the lifeblood, but more the GI of the
business. Sure. All right. Let's get it all medical and everything.
What goes in, what goes out, like,
you know,
like a physical,
but
like a trainer or a nutritionist.
So that's why I was trying to say, like, hey, I'm really passionate about it, because a lot of times, and I even talk to the folks that do finance, economics, and different fields around business, you know, and they say, you know, some of the best people that they have working for them understand accounting and actually know like how the numbers are created, so that they can use that as value to be able to analyze the numbers. All right. But I digress. Back to what I was saying, right? So I do mentor quite a few CPAs that want to start their own businesses. And sometimes, you know, the things that I ask them, because the service we provide is a commodity.
Yes.
You know, throw a stone, you'll find somebody doing taxes. Throw a stone, you'll find a bookkeeper, accountant, CPA, you know, so on and so forth. There are a lot of them out there, right? So I always give them the example of Whole Foods and Walmart, right? They're both grocery stores, right? But they know their niche. They know, are they going to be cheap, fast, or excellent?
Oh, I thought you was going to say bougie or ratchet.
Oh, well, it actually is, it falls into somewhere in those 3, right? So I always tell them, right, if you're going to start up your own CPA firm, like, what do you want that to look like? And there's no right or wrong answer. You know, let's start off with that.
Yes.
I always tell them there's never a right or wrong answer, because Walmart is successful, highly successful. Whole Foods is also successful.
Talk about what you want.
Yeah. You know, I was about to say Spirit, but Spirit Airlines. What do you call it? What's that other airline? Frontier is successful, especially with their Frontier Pass, right?
Yeah, right
and
now.
American Airlines is successful. Right.
Delta is successful.
Delta is successful. Okay, good example there. Right. But for you guys, what do you guys think about that?
Specifically, which part?
About cheap, fast, or excellent.
okay.
When it comes to especially like your industry and so on, and experiences that you've had.
You can go.
So
ahead.
when I'm the way I think about things is really dissecting the three different aspects: cheap, fast, successful. So when I think cheap, what I think is cost effective, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, protects the margin. You know, that's what I think about cheap. When I think fast, I think an opportunity, you get the opportunity to quickly learn and fail quickly, or you get the opportunity to get the market because you're the first that's out there, right? And when I think, what's the last one? Is it excellent?
Yeah.
When I think excellent, I think high quality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think preservation. Does that make sense? So the way I would make that decision is picking the two that protects the business downside. So depending on what that is, you know, so if it's a situation where, like your example, I'm trying to build, you know, Whole Foods, which sometimes can look like a grocery lifestyle brand, you know, cheap is not, you know, the type of customer segment that I'm trying to attract.
That's right.
Right?
Or they would want that.
Right. Now,
afford it.
the segment that I'm trying to attract care about excellent, which means quality, and they probably care about fast, which can relate to probably the service that I'm providing, right? Now, if it's something different, maybe like a car wash or something like that, you know, then fast and cheap might be the thing that I go for. So when you're trying to make a decision based off of cheap, fast, excellent, you know, the best way to make that decision is based off of the specific decision that you're trying to make, and being able to identify whether, being able to pick the two that protects the business downside.
So how does that? Can you give us an example of how that applies to your industry? So
yeah. So for example, in the startup industry, quality is not something that's prioritized, because you got to realize that you're building an MVP, a minimum viable product. And when you're building a minimum viable product, you just want to prove that that business model works. You just want to prove that people are able to, you know, they see value in it, and then they're willing to pay for it. So in a situation like that, cheap is a priority, because you don't have the money, or you shouldn't spend too much money to validate something before you start really making the money. And then fast, because you need to know if it's not working,
Quickly.
you need to be able to quickly pivot, right? Yeah. So in from the startup perspective, it's never about excellence. Excellence comes once you're ready to scale. Once you have a well-run oil machine, and now you're ready to scale on a large scale.
You increase the quality at that point.
Yes.
So at that point, what do you pick?
I just said it.
No, I'm saying quality. Do you?
I
pick,
guess.
At the time you're trying to
quality.
No, because
you figure out
when you're ready to scale and you have the money, then obviously you want to pick quality and fast. You know, because you want to be able to grab the market as quickly as possible. Cheap. Not cheap. And the reason why I say not cheap is because as you start to scale, there are certain the bigger you get, the more responsibility you have.
Yeah.
So at that point, if I need to hire a compliance officer, for example,
QA,
I'm not
quality assurance.
I need somebody.
That's assuming you're gonna have more expenses when you're growing than when you're at the top.
Correct.
It's gonna go like this.
Correct.
Eventually.
And then depending on which industry, maybe like if you're in the finance industry, fast is not the way to go, because there's
every dollar, every penny.
Is so much risk to moving fast, and that's why some of these big companies have so many politics and bureaucracy. Why? Yeah. Because they know that if K startup fails, who cares? Right. But if JP, one person makes a small mistake,
you mean the global economy?
Everything falls apart.
That
right?
fraction of a cent, compounded multiple times.
And that's why I made that key statement, which is think about
That's what
what
I
is
wanted to
going
be
to
clear.
protect the business downside.
That's
So
good.
I agree with
And
you.
based off of that, you can make the right decision for your specific niche.
So for me, I'm in healthcare. I'm just gonna bring it into healthcare because I can think of a million other examples, but I wanted to get the perspective of you guys. But I agree. It depends on what you're doing and what stage you're in. So we always say in dentistry, we have growth phase, right? Like say for the payroll should be around 18% if you're running lean and stable. When you're growing, it can climb up to 25 or even 30% because you're not going to have a lot of patients or a lot of revenue, but you still need the bodies, right? So once you're stable, then you can kind of scale and stabilize and recalibrate any additional income increases based on the revenue. So because you can't cheap out on you need a dentist, you need a hygienist, you need a physician, you need a physician.
Are some dentists cheaper than others?
There are, depending on the skills, right? So if you need an implant, you couldn't go get that guy who never placed the implant and pay him less and be like,
I'll take my chances.
it has to match. You're gonna incur costs. That's why it's important with the capital. So in that regard, it depends again where you're at.
So if I want it cheap and fast, I can't come to Dr. Allen?
Depends. If you want it cheap and fast, I don't do cheap and fast.
That's what I'm saying. I can't come to Dr. Allen.
Because the thing is, you're saying you're sacrificing quality. So if you have to pick two of the three and you're not getting quality, right? So then you're just, who wants, not, and that's not necessarily anything to knock on anyone. That's just for me. Affordable is different than cheap.
Yeah.
So there's got to be we're not the most expensive, we're not the cheapest, but the thing is you're getting the highest quality that I can give you.
So you prioritize
I
that.
prioritize that because it's healthcare. And when you guys always make fun of who shops at this, I'm like, I don't spend money on anything but things that matter to my body. And I feel the same way about it. That's also why I'm in healthcare, because I feel like if someone says this costs a car, I'll sell my car for my body. It's not even like a question. The fact that I have to put, I got a car payment, I need my car. I'm like, I could take the bus. I don't care. I'd rather be healthy than have a nice car with jacked up grill and bad health. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But that's my priority. In segueing, when you look at certain things, when you break your leg, it can't be cheap, fast, and good quality.
Nope.
You're going to go to a place of quality, right? So they're going to have multiple specialties or doctors in that. Trauma 1, they have different classifications of hospitals. Trauma 1 usually has every specialty. Trauma 2 has less. Trauma 3 and so forth, right? Less each stage. You're probably going to take you to like a Trauma 1 depending on what, or if you get a gunshot wound, you're not going to go to a place that they don't have anyone who's dealt with this, but guess what? I've sutured up a lot of people. And, my level of training is not quite at a doctor or ER or any of this experience. Yeah, well, if you want that, you're going to pay because it's quick, right? And it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
If you break your arm in the middle of the night, you can't just go to a physician because no physician's there. And if they come there, they're going to charge you an after-hours visit.
Premium.
It's going to be a premium.
Yep.
And, I have a couple of friends who do emergency treatment and stuff. And they had a complaint the other day where someone said, wow, you guys charge more than other people. And I was like, well, you need to make it clear to them. We're here a Sunday at 8 p.m. to deal with your fractured tooth that whatever you didn't take care of all these years. And at, 10 p.m. we're here. You think the staff doesn't have a family and want to go hang out doing what you were doing when you broke your tooth?
Yep.
Like, no, it's a 4th of July weekend and we're here at 10 p.m. And they have to be paid a premium to give up their time with their family. Our labs have to be paid a premium to do things later for you and get it overnight or whatever. So that premium is everyone's paying a premium to be here, right? So that passes on to you.
That's
you
right.
do have the option of waiting till Monday when business is
That's
open
if
again.
you can even get an appointment.
That's what I'm trying to say. So if you want it fast and to be good quality, you have to pay.
Yeah.
There's no such thing at that hour of like, it at least within the realms of which country you're leaving. You can't compare it country to country. It has to be within the realms of your neighborhood. You can't say there's no way you're going to find someone doing something for cheap. Why would anyone sacrifice their time for you? They have families too that they want to invest in, right? And if no one's going to take a inconvenient loss to themselves to your benefit while you still get to enjoy the rest of your life. It just doesn't make sense.
What about in the context of an employee? You know, like how should, because I'm just thinking here. So let's say that you have a tight deadline,
right,
or something like that, and you have to pick between cheap, fast, and excellence.
Fast and excellent.
You know,
Pay
like,
the price. I can't sacrifice the quality, because if you turn in trash, you're gonna have to redo it. It's gonna cost you more.
Yep. Or you might end up losing that job.
You might end up losing. So I'm like,
because you're not a performer.
we all know where we have to do something, anything last minute. I can't even name one time that I try to do, even airline. Go purchase an airline ticket last minute. It's not cheap. It just isn't.
Let's hope the mechanic that's working on the plane is not
is not thinking about cheap, right?
Like
cheap and fast.
I'm just saying, generally, in deadlines, cheap and fast doesn't work.
Yeah.
Cheap and fast works when you have time to make mistakes and recover.
Yeah.
And usually when you're doing cheap and fast, you control the deadline, right? Like it's scheduled out if you want, right? So like, like Monday through Friday, it'll be cheap and fast for you because I can go back to my normal life. And if you mess up, you can fix it. It's not like a very urgent situation, like something that's ticky-tacky that you can fix. And you have to go on volume, because when you're doing a high volume, you're gonna make mistakes.
Yeah.
And for you to reduce that mistakes when you're doing high volume, now you have to pay more people to create that quality assurance.
Yeah.
So if someone figures out how to do cheap, fast, and quality, let me know.
Whoa, hold up. I know you wanted to say something.
Well, what I wanted to say is that we actually didn't break down that triangle of cheap, fast, and excellent, right? Meaning that I want us to just answer these questions real quick, right?
Okay.
If it's cheap and it's fast, what we're saying is that the quality won't be as good.
Yes.
The excellence won't be as good.
Yes.
Correct. If it's fast and it's excellent, the cost, it's not going to be as cheap.
Yeah.
All right. If it's excellent and cheap, you're not going to get it as fast.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So I wanted to lay that out there.
Not necessarily. It's a spectrum. Right?
Yeah, it's a spectrum. That's why I said it's not going to be as
insanely cheap and insanely expensive.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that if you're high quality and fast, that you're insanely expensive. It's just not going to be here. It might be here. Anywhere between here and here. It's just going to be greater.
It's just don't expect that to be the top priority.
Right.
Right. Because there are other two.
It might be fairly inexpensive compared to other pricier options, but it's definitely not going to be the cheapest.
Yeah, but I still want people to understand that the best leaders are not the ones who are always going to be able to promise all three.
Correct.
Yeah.
The best ones are the ones who are able to decide which true works for their particular business, right?
And how to
communicate it early.
When.
Communicate it early, when it's going to happen, and make that decision based off what protects the business bottom line.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you can't have something fast and quality and have it cheap. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
No. So somebody telling you that, hey, I can get it to you real cheap, real fast,
just
and
doesn't
quality.
make
It just sounds like a scam.
It's too good to be true. It's too good to be true.
It could be true until everybody hops on board.
Man, stop trying to get these people scammed, man.
Yeah, no,
If
it's not.
to be true.
You know, when AI came out, it was true. Then, things changed. And now everybody's doing it.
But then now we found out that, it was hallucinating.
Exactly.
Oh, really?
Exactly.
We didn't know up front.
Everyone else was.
Yeah, right.
It was right. Nobody,
But
anyway, I'm kidding.
Let me give this point, before we round up, So going back to my example where I'm mentoring folks, I think now that we've discussed those three options, the biggest challenge I feel like most people face is that the market doesn't agree with
Yes.
the two that the business has chosen.
Give me an example.
I kind of get where you're going.
Let's talk accounting,
Okay.
right? Or taxes or whatever, whatever service we
love him
provide.
some taxes, boy.
Bruh. All right. So a lot of times, because many providers, I think they get burnt out because you kind of operate with volume, right?
Define providers.
CPAs,
Okay.
tax professionals, bookkeepers,
Okay.
accountants, payroll specialists, and so on, right? The ones in our field, like in that accounting space, you get burnt out because a lot of times it's volume, right? So you charge lower and you got to do more work.
Yes.
But nowadays, everybody's kind of wisening up and saying that, hey, we want to charge a little bit more and provide better service, because now instead of servicing, 500 clients to make the same amount of money, I want to service only 150.
Okay.
Do quality, higher quality.
Okay.
Higher quality work, charge more, less stress.
Yeah.
We can survive this stressful business. However, the problem is they're not able to find, in that example, the 150 that will pay them what the 500 were paying them.
Right.
So the market is not agreeing that you need to be excellent and fast.
I think it's not that it's not agreeing. It's that there are limited amount of people to kind of agree to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it can't be.
I mean, that's still the same thing. The
But-
market doesn't agree.
Well, yeah, it's not going to be.
You can't find
ubiquitous,
enough
right?
people.
So there's always going to be a smaller percentage of the market that wants that than cheap.
Yes.
Because that's why a smaller percentage go to the Whole Foods than Walmart's and all the other like higher volume stores.
I see it.
Well, two things.
It's always gonna be like that. Same with like you have like luxury vehicles. There's gonna be a smaller part of the market that can actually afford it than the vast majority don't drive that. You know what I mean? At least here in the United States.
Well, so, and this is something that I see founders do all the time. You can't say that the market is not agreeing with the position or the business model that you're trying to execute. If number one, you haven't validated your business model properly. So what do I mean by validation? Does the problem exist? And number two, are people willing to pay for it? So in your specific situation, let's say you've been doing volume and now you want to shrink.
Yeah.
But within that shrinking, you're going to be providing more quality, more tailored services, right? If you haven't determined that, hey, there's actually enough people that need that service and that quantity of people are willing to pay for that service, you've basically done an injustice to your business model because you didn't validate it. And because you didn't validate it, you put something out there and now you're wondering why nobody's paying for it.
Isn't that what our dear friend
Yeah,
told us before?
In a previous episode,
we've had a guest say that. Even just something, I was having a
I think
conversation
that was my
with
biggest takeaway from what he
with
said.
our car wash guy, right? And I told him straight up, I said, with a car wash, especially like the quick express one, you pay what, $20
Right.
comes in
A month.
Per month.
$20 a month comes in and go. And then with the more tailored, in and out
Detail.
cleaning,
Full detail.
you pay like, let's say $40-$50, right?
Yeah.
And then with the really full detail where like you're going in and out, you pay $300.
Right.
Now, how many people have $300 to be paying for a car every 2 weeks?
Right. It's a smaller. It's
Not
always
many
gonna be
people.
that way, yeah.
So you make $300, but guess what? In the midst of you cleaning that car, which might take like 2 hours, you could have probably done 10, 20, 30 cars. Right? But because, you're thinking about the small quantity, guess what? Because you're thinking about the high value ticket, you're not getting the quantity that is required for you to even out. And I think that's the situation. When you don't validate properly, you're going to end up losing out.
I think you do have to like understand, like you have to, like you said, you have to strategize and see what is the market giving me and where do I fit in with the market? What piece of the market can I take? Maybe you don't take a 150 of these clients. Maybe you take 200 of the clients from the 500 and 75 of this and meet in the middle and get a mix of it.
Yeah.
So you're not burning yourself out doing 500 and you're only seeing 75 of these that require your full attention. And then, you get a hybrid of it. So
No.
you're still, I'm saying that's
Because
a
now,
business
as a
model.
high ticket customer, you are now diluting my service.
Incorrect.
Well, no.
High
See-
ticket now works for the people who are
well-
account managers versus those 200 people. You can afford to hire people who are doing it because they're just coming during tax season. They're not coming regularly. Is what I'm trying to say.
When you were speaking, I agreed 100% because you reminded me of Lamborghini, right? Everybody knows Lamborghinis, 2-door, really low to the ground. You hit a bump, you're scratching the bottom, right? Those type of cars.
Yeah.
However, they created an SUV.
Yeah.
And now that SUV is one of their top sellers.
Yeah.
The SUV is not as expensive as, their supermodel. I said supermodel. The
sports car.
sports cars,
cars,
right?
supercar.
Yes, they're supercars, right?
Yeah,
but
sports
it
car.
gave me the idea of, maybe it is true that, you do want. Life is never, the extremes.
Black and white.
It's never black and white,
There are
right?
spaces in between.
So it's about figuring out that middle. But it's also very hard for folks that are brand new to
It
a
is.
market, right? Because maybe I come from an experience, and I'll still go back to my CPA mentorship experience, right? They're coming from another firm, they have the experience, they know how to do the work. They've probably been billed out at, $1,000 an hour by these big guys, right? So they see the value that they provide. And now when they're going to work for a small company, obviously most small companies, and when I say small companies, I think SBA defines it as 500 employees or less.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're not going to pay $1,000 an hour for your time.
Yeah,
Okay.
of
course not.
They're not going to, let's be real. Okay. All right. However, you shouldn't take $20 an hour for your time.
Right.
Right. So how do you find those clients that fit right? And what Alan was talking about was kind of like, hey, kind of do a hybrid of both.
And you can always, as you build more clients, transition to this. It just sometimes takes time because guess what? You can watch your business model and it may work, but if you get into a spot and you're like, it's not really working, you do need something to pay the bills while you make that work. It's
So, what I do agree that there has to be a balance. I think
it
that
doesn't have to be a mix,
Right.
honestly.
Well,
you can
so-
pick either or, but if it ain't working, it ain't working. You know?
Well, so and that's where I'm going with this. Like, rather than trying to still combine everyone and have a balanced out price, why not segregate? It's still the same
That's what I
company.
just said.
No, you said try and find a middle price.
I was saying that keep your managers doing these clients, bring these other people and segment and do these.
Okay.
clients. That's what I'm saying. And you can slowly change it over to what you want to do and leave those clients alone if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good perspective because.
But you're
for
saying, I think you're saying the same thing.
Yeah, for me as a high ticket client, I don't want to
You don't
hear.
wanna-
I don't want to
yeah.
hear that. Hey, because you're trying to even things out, you're going to be taking this away.
But you willing to pay more then?
No, I'm,
You know what
if
I
I'm,
mean?
if I'm already paying
Like, say he's already
$1,000.
paying whatever.
You know, I'm already paying whatever the high tickets. I'm already paying for it.
Yeah.
You know,
He's saying
And-
if he's in a high ticket branch,
Yeah.
he's not want you to take away stuff just so you can have more time for the
Exactly.
low ticket branch.
And if
He
I'm
didn't
a
pay.
That's tough.
and if I'm a low,
I mean, you
no,
wouldn't
no,
either.
no, because
It's
think about it. Think about it.
transparent.
It's not even tough. I could just go find somebody else. You're the one changing your
Man.
business model. I could go find somebody else.
That's true.
So check this out.
No, you're right. You're making me think.
If I am paying you $50 every time it's time to do my tax, and then you come to me and you say, "Hey, man, we're increasing the quality." Da 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 da. If I don't have anything to write off and my tax is just simple, I'm like, oh, okay, no problem. Hey, let me Google the cheap CPA accountant. Because at that point,
or TurboTax.
yeah,
Might
at
as
that
well.
point, I'm no longer your customer segment.
Yeah.
You know, so and that's why I'm such a big
segmented.
yeah, I'm such a big believer in
Knowing your market.
rather than trying to consolidate, right? There's a reason why you have JP Morgan Wealth Management,
Right.
JP Morgan Commercial Lending, you know,
Lexus
you know,
Toyota.
you know what I'm saying? Goldman Sachs, they tried to get into consumer credit card. And look how that turned out. They failed. Why? Because you're used to wealth management, and then now you're dealing with everyday folks that don't pay their bills.
The infrastructure and just
Well, that's why they
You just
partnered
have
up
to
with
gear
Apple.
to
That's
be
why
able
they
to do
partnered
it.
up with
Yeah, that's
Apple
why
now.
Yeah.
No,
Right.
but they partner with Apple to do that.
Yeah.
But now they're trying to sell it because
really?
there's a lot of debt weight. I think
Oh.
JP is they're thinking
acquire-
about
yeah.
acquiring it. But I don't mean to digress.
Segue, yeah.
When you're trying to decide how to price your customer, I think you have to make sure that there's a value alignment. I can't overcharge you and I can't undercharge you
Right.
because I'm trying to consolidate.
Right.
I need to be able to have now the problem that you're probably having is, look, I need to streamline everything so that all my people have the same equal
thing.
work. So, but the reality is that the market is going to tell you what's working.
Yeah.
You can't tell the market what's going to work.
Yeah. So you're saying let the market lead.
Yes.
I think you can't.
Interesting.
You're not big enough to force the market into your direction. You
Correct.
have to become
No.
the market.
Correct.
You're not the S&P 500.
Correct. Because somebody who's paying 1,000, right? They're expecting
Yeah, I expect a lot.
that when you call, you get back to me within 24 hours.
Yeah.
If I'm paying $20, when I call,
You get a text.
you say,
email.
You say,
Schedule
hey,
now.
schedule an appointment. We'll
Yeah.
get back to you
Yeah.
within 72 to, you know, with,
And you can't get mad because
Can't
you
get
pay
mad.
me.
and
I can't get mad either.
and actually, I might not even get on the phone with you. It might say you'll get an email with the documents that we need. We'll prepare it and we'll send it back.
Yeah, seriously.
We're way too nice then. Never mind.
No, but the issue is that I think the issue you're having in this situation is you grew it from you and then you branched it off. So everyone, pretty much a lot of new clients came on with you. And so they expect the quality with you. Now, any new clients that you have, in my opinion, should go through whatever team is gonna, if they're, you can already know what they want. Somebody should be somebody's job to, or some system in place to screen what they're looking for. Maybe a questionnaire or whatever. And it should say in there, what do you expect to pay? Seriously. And that way it doesn't mean anything. Like you can just, they have it in a lot of businesses. They have it in a lot of
If
businesses.
you say, what do I expect to pay?
Everybody doesn't want. Everybody is.
Nobody wants to
on
pay.
G- Yeah.
No, you leave it just zero or blank. That's it. I've seen it multiple times. I said, that's smart. Because now I got to tell them what
I mean, it depends on the industry. I mean, this really wasn't for our firm because I think our firm we've kind of figured out and have some managers that are assigned to different clients and so on, and they're doing a good job. I believe I have a great team.
So before we round up, you still have yet to tell us, like, how are you advising your mentees when it comes to the 3 different decision-making process, whether excellent, cheap, or fast?
I'm going cheap.
Personally, right? Because all I give them is personal experiences. I don't know what's going to work for them. Right. Because the way I get clients is going to be very different from the way they get clients.
Yeah.
Right. There's one of my mentees, awesome lady, CPA, she's able to network her way to growing her firm. All right. I don't know how she does it. Like I had to acquire. All right. But she's killing it. And she didn't buy one single client, buy a firm and merged it and all that. So she didn't have to do all of that to build a great firm. She's got team members now and so on and so forth. So there are multiple ways of being successful. But initially, we were just talking about that value that we provide. And sometimes it could hinder At least like in the CPA world, it could hinder you from starting, right? Because there's another guy that I'm mentoring, right? He's having a hard time finding those clients, right? But he also knows the value that he provides. He also knows the amount of time he has. He's not able to do the volume work because the volume work, they really want it for cheap.
Yeah.
Like competitive to an online tax provider.
Yes.
That's like,
Right. But a CPA doing it.
What?
And I always tell folks, like, if you have somebody doing it, it should be way more expensive than you doing it by yourself using these online
well,
tools.
If you use an online tool, then you don't need us. Like if you have that, if you don't care enough, you know what I mean?
No. They want to use the online tool, but they want somebody to like,
Verify.
they want to use somebody to have that comfort level that they did it right. Right. So they don't have the comfort level of using the online tool, but they like the pricing of the online tool and they want to replicate that with you.
Interesting.
Yes. So it happens a lot. Why? Because there are probably a bunch of tax preparers out there. Let's just use taxes, right? And they can find somebody that would, charge them that same fee. So the way I advise them, I tell them, hey,
quality. That's why.
yeah. So I tell them, hey, the way I started, when I started, anybody that was breathing that wanted us to help them out, come on by. All right. But at some point, there was a break-even point. And now we are actually, just like the client is interviewing us, we also interview the client.
Right.
We want to make sure, not just about, looking at cheap, fast, or excellent, but we're also looking at the mentality of that client.
Yeah.
If you're not the right fit for us, if you're saying, oh, I just want my refund, I need to be getting, somebody else got $50,000 in refund, can you guys do that? I already know that you're probably not the right fit because that's not the point of taxes, and we don't want to digress here. All right. So I always tell them, make sure you're looking at what is your value. If you can't find enough clients that want to pay for your value, maybe you're not ready yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe start it up as a side hustle and then start building it slowly until you get enough, and then you can jump out full time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. I definitely agree with you. And, for the folks out there, this is a mind shift episode, right? Because what we're saying is that there is no right answer, whether you want to execute fast, cheap, or excellent. What we're saying is that the best folks are the ones who are able to make the trade-off, communicate early, right? And protect what matters to their specific business. So as an entrepreneur, what type of business are you in? And which just two decisions help you to protect the bottom line? If you are an ambitious employee, a professional, what are the two traits that will allow you to still get the job done while still protecting your job or reputation, whatever that is, right? And we'd love to hear from you guys. Drop it in the comment section. What do you think about this episode? What are your thoughts on it? And please make sure you check out our website at gobeyondthegrind.com, where we're posting new episodes daily.
Weekly.
Oh, sorry. Weekly. Sorry, not daily. And we'd love to hear from you, man. Drop a comment. Let's hear from you. Until next time, guys.
Peace.
To make strategic decisions and take calculated risks. We'll also talk about future-proofing your business so you can build a lasting legacy and true freedom. This isn't a one-sided conversation. We're all on this journey together to build a life and a business that works.